of immigrants, primarily from Lesotho, Nigeria, Mozambique and Zimbabwe, live in South Africa. For more than a century, though, South Africa has played an enormous role in attracting labor for its vast economy. But its coexistence possible between anxious locals and immigrants when South African politicians use opportunism and populism to exaggerate issues of migration. Now, this is the question posed by human rights defender at the Crisis in Zimbabwe Coalition, Tatenda Mazura. She joins us live now. Tatenda, thank you so much for your time and thank you for joining us. You know, anti-immigrant and xenophobic sentiment, largely directed towards migrants, black migrants, has become a regular feature in South Africa's contemporary landscape. But every so often we get these violent flare-ups. You've identified Operation Dudula as the more recent. What would you say is fueling this particular brand of sentiment?
Good morning, viewers, and thank you to News Africa for having me. I think the xenophobic attacks that we are witnessing today are as a result of a systematic system that's been going on for quite some time. I remember when I was young, I used to read about what is popularly known as Wenera. This was when South Africa imported a lot of migrant workers back during the colonial era in the 19th century to work in their mines. And because of the shortage of labor in South Africa, they had to bring in foreign nationals from as far as Malawi, Mozambique, Zimbabwe, and Zambia, to mention just a few, so that they would, for lack of a better term, use them and abuse their cheap labor, considering that they were still fresh from their own colonial rule. So fast forward to 2010, we also witnessed a similar strategy by now the ANC government during the World Cup, the 2010 Soccer World Cup, where we saw the ANC relaxing their visa restrictions so that they would attract lots of migrant workers. This means that both legal and rather documented and undocumented migrant workers managed to come into South Africa, whether skilled or not skilled, to help with the construction as they fix the infrastructure ahead of the World Cup. This created animosity between the foreign nationals and the local natives, who believed that these foreigners were coming to South Africa and offering their labor for paltry allowances or salaries, meaning that the locals would then go without employment. So over the years, we have seen an increase in attacks against foreign nationals. From 2008, 2015, hundreds of migrants were killed from these xenophobic attacks. Now we see the new kid on the block, which is Operation Dudula, as well as hashtag Put South Africans First, which has become very prominent on social media. They are trending on a daily basis, calling on businesses, calling on the government to get rid of foreigners under the guise that they're illegal and they're increasing the rate of crime in the country and other social ills. So it's more like a fight against limited resources in the country. This is where these xenophobic attacks are emanating from, because the locals believe it's their birthright to have access to employment, yet this is going to the foreigners who are willing to do it at a very lower fee.
You know, I asked you earlier what you thought was fueling this particular brand of anti-immigrant sentiment that we're seeing through movements such as Operation Dudula. And I want to ask you about what you think are the causes or the facilitators behind this particular brand of anti-immigrant sentiment. You've asserted that these negative attitudes and perceptions have been around for a while, and really what we're seeing is a culmination of these tensions brewing and bubbling over these last couple of days. But what is the cause? And if we can identify the cause, what is also facilitating so much of the tensions that we're seeing on the ground?
I believe that our politicians, our leaders, both those ones that are in government and those that actually want to be in government, are taking advantage of the system, of the current situation. They are then scapegoating migrants for their failure to deliver on, to give service delivery, to provide housing, to provide adequate hospital facilities to their citizens, and then they are using these hooligans to take advantage of them and actually target foreigners under the guise that if these foreigners had not come to South Africa, the jobs they are currently they have would go to South Africans, and the houses that they have would automatically be occupied by South Africans, which is cheap politics. They are just trying to score cheap brownie points by doing this and diverting attention of the masses from the real issues, which is failure, a governance failure. For over 30 years now, the ANC has failed to put in place effective infrastructure, to build housing for all its citizens. It has also failed to provide skills and education system that is competitive. So you then see businesses being forced to import these foreigners because they have more skill, they have more education. So I believe that Operation Dudula is just a way to divert us from the real issues. If you look at the missed opportunities by the ANC government, dating back to the Thabo Mbeki era, where they continue, these SADC leaders, they continue presiding over flawed elections, they continue pulling the brotherhood card instead of calling each other out. In Zimbabwe, we had a very flawed election, a very violent one, back in 2008. Thabo Mbeki mediated and formed and helped our leaders to form a government of national unity, which then endorsed an illegitimate president, the former late President Mugabe.
Sure.
So I believe that we are backing up the wrong tree. Yeah. And I also believe that these citizens who are pushing for put South Africans first and the Dudula, they've got legitimate concerns, some of them, because, yes, why are we still experiencing poverty? Why are we still having so much high unemployment rates?
Yeah.
If you look at the recent World Bank report, it says that South Africa remains one of the biggest unequal country in the world. It means there's a lot.
I'd like to just come in here because I get the sense that the point that you're making is that xenophobic sentiments or anti-immigrant sentiments in this country are being co-opted for some or other political agenda. Looking at Operation Dudula as a movement, none of the leaders have purported or expressed any interest to become a part of South Africa's political landscape. You're right in saying that a lot of the issues that are being raised by communities on the ground are issues that Operation Dudula claim to be taking on directly and actually trying to effect change. But at no point have they expressed any intention to enter into the political landscape. And so in what sense would an operation like Operation Dudula be trying to score cheap political points?
I realize that migration has become an election issue. If you look at the November local government elections, ANC performed very dismally for the first time since independence in 1994. So pressure is now mounting on ANC because the new kids on the block, like Action SA and other opposition political parties, have been pushing the migration issue. They've been saying that we need to prioritize our local. So ANC is now under pressure, and this is all just selfish motives by the politicians. Because, like I highlighted earlier, ANC was okay with relaxing its visa restrictions to allow Zimbabweans and other foreign nationals to come into South Africa when they knew they could benefit. ANC has continued to endorse flawed elections as part of the SADC and AU. So now that they realize that they could actually lose an election and they could actually be dethroned, that's when they are trying to be seen to be doing something about this so-called migration crisis. And we see a determination from the South African government to use new policies and legislation, such as the recently introduced National Labour Migration Policy and Employment Services Amendment Bill, which introduces quotas and how foreign nationals should be, to curb rather, foreigners from working in both formal and informal economy.
All right, well, Tatenda, I think you've certainly given us some food for thought this morning and shared some very interesting insights on these developments. That's Tatenda Mazura from the Zimbabwean Crisis Coalition joining us on the line there to try and make sense of a lot of the anti-immigrant and xenophobic sentiments that we've been seeing on the ground of late. Now,